Hey, my dear listener, this is my new channel. Due to some reasons, I had to create a new one. Just like the love and support you gave me before, please continue to show the same love on this channel too. And yes, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a comment. Now, let's begin the story. I never thought much about fast food jobs until I actually had one. To most people, they're just background noise, bright lights, greasy smells, people in visors handing out paper bags with fake smiles. You don't really think about the people behind the counter. You just want your food and go. But that was before I worked at Burger King off Highland Avenue, just outside Columbus, Ohio. Back then, I was just a 17-year-old girl named Megan Ross, trying to save up for community college and a used car that didn't leak oil. My mom worked nights at the hospital, and my stepdad drove trucks out of state, so it was mostly me and my little sister Abby at home. The job wasn't glamorous. God knows it wasn't. But it felt normal. My best friend Kayla worked the drive-thru, and we used to joke about who would last longer before quitting. That first week, I remember thinking, it's just burgers. How bad could it be? Turns out it wasn't the burgers that were the problem. By December, I'd been there 3 months, long enough to know the rhythm, the morning lull, the lunch rush, the 3 p.m. quiet where everything smelled like burnt grease and exhaustion. The back door never quite latched, and the walk-in freezer light flickered like something out of a bad horror movie. But the scariest part of that job wasn't the freezer or the angry customers. It was something far quieter, something that noticed me. It was February 4th, 2017, a Saturday, the kind of Ohio winter day that made your breath hang in the air like smoke. My shift started at 10. I got there early, earbuds in, listening to the 1975 while walking through the slush-covered parking lot. The neon Burger King sign buzzed above me, half the bulbs burned out. Inside, it was the usual chaos, fryer popping, drive-thru headset, beeping non-stop, someone yelling that the ice cream machine was broken again. Kayla leaned over the counter, smirking. "Hey, Megan, new guy's working grill today." "He's cute," I rolled my eyes. So was the last one until he tried to sell weed to customers in the parking lot. She laughed. Fair point. By lunchtime, the place was packed. Construction guys, moms with toddlers, a few college kids nursing hangovers. My voice was on autopilot. "Welcome to Burger King. What can I get for you?" "That'll be $8.79, please. Next in line." Same script, different faces, until he walked in. He didn't look like anything special. Average height, early 40s maybe. Short brown hair, trimmed beard, green canvas jacket. He had that quiet, working man look, the kind of guy who'd fix your sink without small talk. He stepped up to my register, polite smile. "Afternoon," he said. "Hi there," I replied automatically. "What can I get for you?" "Whopper meal, large, Coke." He handed me cash, exact change, crisp bills. When I passed him his receipt, our fingers brushed, just a second too long. "You've got a nice smile," he said. "Brightens up the place." I forced a chuckle. "Thanks. Not a lot of people your age can do this job and still smile." "That's rare. Guess I'm just used to it," I said, punching his order into the screen. He watched me, not in a flirty way exactly, but with this interest. Like I was an exhibit he didn't want to leave. When I called his order number, he took his tray to a corner booth under the broken light. Ate slow, eyes always drifting back to me. Every time I looked up, he was already looking. He left around 2, or at least I thought he did. When I took out trash behind the building later, I saw a silver car, a Toyota Camry, maybe, idling near the dumpster. Windows tinted, someone inside, smoking. I didn't think much of it. Lots of people sat there eating lunch or on their phones. But when I glanced again, the cigarette was out, and the driver was staring straight at me. I dropped the trash bag and hurried back in. "Everything okay?" Kayla asked when she saw my face. "Yeah," I lied. "Just cold." I clocked out at 5, pulled on my hoodie, and headed for my car, an old Honda Civic that sounded like a dying lawnmower. As I unlocked it, I saw that same silver Camry parked 2 rows over. Engine still running. My stomach tightened. I climbed in, locked the doors, and started the car. For a second, the radio drowned out everything. Then I noticed headlights flicker behind me. The Camry had pulled out too. I turned left onto Highland Avenue. The Camry turned left. I slowed down. It slowed down. I took a right toward the gas station. So did he. By the time I hit the intersection near Franklin Street, my heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I did the only thing I could think of. I pulled into the gas station, parked right under the bright floodlights, and went inside. The clerk, Raj, looked up from behind the counter. "Long day?" he asked. "You could say that," I said, pretending to browse. Outside, the Camry idled at the edge of the lot. Raj followed my gaze. "Someone bothering you?" I hesitated. "I think that guy's been following me." Raj frowned, wiping his hands on his apron. "Stay inside a minute." He stepped out, phone in hand. The Camry's headlights flicked off. Then, silence. When Raj came back in, the car was gone. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded, though my hands were still shaking. That night, Mom was working the late shift. Abby was at a friend's house. The house was quiet, just the hum of the refrigerator and the wind pressing against the windows. I tried watching Netflix, but I kept glancing at the window facing the street. 8:47 p.m. 3 slow knocks on the door. I froze. Every nerve in my body screamed, "Don't move." The knocking came again. I crept to the peephole. It was him. Green jacket. Same expressionless face. I backed away from the door, heart hammering. My phone was on the coffee table. I grabbed it, dialed 911 with trembling fingers. 911, what's your emergency? "There's a man outside my house," I whispered. "He followed me from work." The operator's voice stayed calm. "Can you see him right now?" "Yes. He's at my door. Stay on the line." "Officers are on the way. Do not open the door." But before I could answer, a faint sound made my blood run cold. The soft creak of the back gate. I ducked into the kitchen, peeking through the window above the sink. The gate swung slowly open. A figure moved along the fence line, flashlight beam darting between trees. He was looking for another way in. The dispatcher's voice was still in my ear. "Megan, I need you to find a safe room and lock yourself inside." I ran upstairs into my mom's bedroom, locking the door behind me. My whole body was shaking. Downstairs, I heard the back door rattle. Then, thunk, like something hitting glass. He was trying the sliding door. Then a pause, silence, and a voice muffled but close. "You don't need to be scared, Megan. I just want to talk." My breath caught. He knew my name. How? I'd never told him where I lived, unless he followed me after work, before tonight. The sound of tires on gravel broke the silence. Blue and red lights flashed through the curtains. The police found fresh boot prints by the back door and smudges on the glass, like he'd tried to force it. But by the time they arrived, he was gone. They searched the area. Nothing. No plates, no name, no proof, except my word and the prints. For weeks after, I barely slept. Every time headlights passed the house, I'd jolt awake. I quit Burger King that Monday. Told them my grades were slipping. I never went back. A year passed. I started community college, tried to forget. Then one afternoon I got a text from Kayla. "Kayla, remember that guy from your Burger King?" "Green jacket guy?" Me. "Yeah." "Why?" Kayla. He came in today, asked if you still worked there. My fingers went numb. Me. What did you tell him? Kayla. That you moved away. Me. Good. She hesitated before sending the next message. Kayla. He left a note. She sent me a photo. A crumpled napkin with neat handwriting. Tell Megan I didn't mean to scare her. I just miss our talks. I stared at it for a long time. I hadn't said 10 words to him in my life. There were no talks, only the sound of the register beeping and his eyes watching me from across the counter. Sometimes I still think about that night, how close danger can sit without you realizing it. How something as simple as a job, a paycheck, a routine, can turn into a memory that keeps you awake years later. They never found him, but every now and then I'll see a silver car parked across the street when I get home from class. It never stays long, just long enough for me to wonder, long enough for me to remember his voice. You don't need to be scared, Megan. I just want to talk, and I swear even now I can still hear the faint echo of those words through the glass when the wind hits just right. Story 2, I remember the ice first, not just the cold, the kind that makes your breath fog in front of your face like smoke, but the kind that crawls down your spine and settles in your bones. It was February of 2014, a winter that felt like it was trying to kill the whole state of Ohio. I was 21, broke, and trying to finish my final semester at a trade college in Columbus. My heater had gone out in my apartment 2 weeks earlier, and I couldn't afford the repair. Most nights I slept in 2 hoodies, jeans, and socks pulled over my hands. I'd been scraping by doing odd jobs, hauling junk for landlords, shoveling driveways, whatever paid cash. But January had been a dead month. Nobody wanted to spend money, and I was down to my last $60. That's when Uncle Terry called. Terry was the kind of guy who'd seen too much and slept too little. Former welder, chain smoker, always had a story about someone losing a finger or getting their face half burned off on the job. He told me he could get me in on a demolition crew out in a town called Brookhaven, about an hour and a half west. They were tearing down a strip of condemned properties, an old Burger King, a tax prep office, a dry cleaner, and a handful of half-collapsed storefronts. Pays weekly, he said. Cash. You show up on time, you keep your mouth shut, and you don't ask dumb questions. I didn't need to think twice. February 11th, Tuesday. When I got to Brookhaven, the air itself felt abandoned. The town was a skeleton. Brick buildings with busted windows, snow piled knee-high in the gutters, not a single person walking the streets, the kind of silence that buzzes in your ears. The job site sat on North Main, fenced off with cheap chain link, and a faded sign that read, Horizon Reclamation Co. There were 5 of us, Terry, 2 older guys named Ralph and Cutter, a young woman named Dana, and the foreman, Gus, a big man with a voice like gravel in a blender. Clock in, keep your head down, Gus said when I arrived. We're on a deadline. City wants this block flattened before March. We started with the dry cleaner, then the tax office. By the time we reached the Burger King, it was already snowing, fat flakes drifting sideways under a yellow-gray sky. The building was squat, brick, and almost colorless. The old red trim had faded to rust, and the Burger King logo above the door was half-peeled, like a wound scabbing over. The glass door was taped with a condemned notice, dated 2010. By nightfall, Gus told everyone to pack it in. Storm's coming, he said. We'll hit the Burger King tomorrow. Everyone piled into trucks and vans. I didn't have one. The last bus into town dropped me off near the site that morning, and there wasn't another headed out until dawn. The nearest motel was a mile away, and my legs felt like concrete. Terry tossed me a cigarette before leaving. Stay warm, kid. Don't let the ghosts bite, he laughed. I didn't. When their taillights disappeared down Main, I was alone. The wind picked up and the snow came faster, slicing through the beam of the lone floodlight like static on an old TV. I pulled my scarf tighter and started walking toward the motel. That's when I saw it. Across the street, the Burger King sign was glowing. Not brightly, just a weak red and brown shimmer, like the last ember in a dying fire. The drive-thru sign blinked once, twice, then steadied. A small open sign glowed in the front window. I stopped dead. Every other building was dark. Power to that block had been cut off weeks ago. Gus said the city disconnected it after the first safety inspection. I should have kept walking. I should have. But the wind howled and my stomach growled louder. I hadn't eaten since breakfast. The front door opened easily. Too easily. No lock, no alarm. The smell hit me first. Grease, dust, and something faintly metallic, like old blood on iron. Inside, the dining area looked half abandoned. Tables still set, ketchup packets hardened with age, a kid's toy from some long-past meal lying under a booth. The heat lamps behind the counter were still glowing dull orange, giving everything a low, pulsing warmth. A voice came from behind the counter. "You eating in or taking out?" I turned. A thin kid stood there, maybe 19. Pale skin, sunken eyes, hair slicked back like he'd just gotten out of a freezer. His name tag said Miles. You guys still open?" He nodded slowly. "Yeah, grill's still hot." "What do you want?" I hesitated. "Double Whopper. Fries. Coke." He stared at me for a beat too long, then nodded again. "No pickles?" "Yeah, no pickles." Miles turned and walked into the kitchen. The sound of oil hissing filled the air, followed by something that didn't sound like cooking. More like breathing. Deep, wet, slow. I leaned on the counter, trying to ignore it. The floor under me vibrated faintly, like machinery running under the tiles. "Miles?" I called. Something heavy scraped across the floor in the back. Then another voice answered, low, rough, like a throat full of gravel. "Orders ready." Miles came back out holding a grease-stained paper bag. His hands were trembling. "On the house," he said. I frowned. "You sure?" "Register's down. Manager said it's fine." He slid the Coke toward me. The cup was ice cold. The condensation made little rivers down the counter. I took my food and sat near the front window. The fries were hot, crisp. The burger, perfect. Juicy, smoky, almost too good. Hunger drowned out any suspicion. But halfway through, I noticed something. The meat wasn't beef. The texture was off, stringy, soft, and there was a faint copper tang that clung to my tongue. I tried to swallow it down. I told myself it was just overcooked. When I looked up, Miles was gone. The counter was empty. The kitchen dark. Only the low hum of the heat lamps filled the silence. That's when I saw movement. Behind the counter, something tall shifted. Too tall for any person. Bent backward, joints clicking as it turned. Pale arms stretched from the darkness, long enough to drag across the tiles. A voice rasped from the shadows. "Still hungry?" I froze. My chair creaked. The sound stopped. Then, a metallic slam. The lights flickered out. I bolted for the door, the warm bag of food spilling from my hands. The open sign flickered once, twice, and died. When I hit the street, the snow was nearly blinding. I didn't stop running until I reached the motel. That night, I couldn't sleep. The food still sat like a stone in my stomach. My reflection in the bathroom mirror looked pale, sickly. I splashed water on my face, and that's when I saw it. Blood smeared on my mouth, streaked across my chin. My teeth were clean. My gums weren't bleeding. I gagged, scrubbing it off, but it just kept coming. A thin trickle from nowhere, running down my jaw. I passed out on the bathroom floor. The next morning, Gus's truck horn jolted me awake. I stumbled outside, face pale, hands shaking. We got to the Burger King just after sunrise. It was dead. No lights, no warmth, no footprints in the snow. The windows were boarded, the door chained shut. Inside, everything was covered in frost. The fryers were filled with black sludge, the counters rusted through. No trace of Miles. In the basement, Cutter found an old walk-in freezer. Gus pried it open with a crowbar. Inside were plastic bags, dozens of them, each one labeled with dates. None of them contained meat anyone could identify. Ralph puked in the corner. Gus slammed the door shut. No one says a damn word. You hear me? We're finishing the job and leaving. By the end of the week, the Burger King was rubble. 2 nights later, my phone rang. Unknown number. A voice on the other end. Flat, calm. This is Mr. Calhoun from Eclipse Operations. We oversee properties like the one in Brookhaven. We'd like to discuss your experience there. How'd you get my number? I asked. You were the only one who went inside before demolition, the voice said. We need to know what you saw. I didn't see anything, I lied. A pause, then, good. Keep it that way. The line went dead. That was 11 years ago. I moved 3 states away. New job, new number, new name on the lease. But every winter, when the snow starts to fall and the wind howls through empty streets, I still catch sight of those faint red and brown letters through the storm, glowing like a dying ember. Sometimes I think about going closer. Then I remember the taste, and the blood, and that voice asking if I was still hungry. So I keep walking. Story 3. I remember the exhaustion more than anything. That kind of bone-deep fatigue that makes your hands tremble when you try to start your car. It was mid-July in Dry Creek, a small, sun-bleached town tucked between miles of desert and an endless stretch of highway. I'd been living there for almost 2 years, working at Clifford's Auto and Tire, one of the only repair shops that stayed open past sundown. The pay wasn't great, but it was steady, and in a place like Dry Creek, steady meant survival. That day had been brutal. 2 radiators, 3 oil changes, and a busted transmission that refused to cooperate. The shop's swamp cooler had died around noon, so the entire place felt like a steel coffin baking in the sun. My coveralls clung to me like wet paper. By the time I clocked out at 8:47 p.m., I was too tired to even think about cooking. My apartment was 10 minutes away, but between there and the shop sat a glowing red and yellow sign I'd seen 1,000 times. Burger King, home of the Whopper. Normally, I avoided fast food, but that night, hunger beat logic. I pulled into the nearly empty lot, the asphalt still shimmering with leftover heat. Inside, the lights were too bright, the air conditioner wheezing like it was dying. The dining area had that faint, greasy smell every Burger King has. Fryer oil, beef, and something faintly burnt. There were only a few customers inside, a mother and her kid sharing fries by the window, an older man in a baseball cap nursing a coffee, and 2 teenage boys laughing near the soda fountain. Behind the counter, 3 employees moved in a tired rhythm. I stepped up when the girl at the register looked up. Her name tag read Tina, maybe 19, with short red hair tucked under a visor. Tina. Evening. What can I get for you? Me. Number 2 combo. No onions, large Coke. To go. She punched it in, gave me a small, polite smile. $10.36. I swiped my card, stepped to the side, and waited. My knees ached from crouching all day. Somewhere behind the counter, the fryers hissed and beeped, and a tall man called out orders in a flat, unamused tone. His name tag read Mark. He looked mid-30s, thick shoulders, shaved head, beard that was more stubble than shape. I noticed how the others moved around him, cautious like they were trying not to be noticed. When my order number, 214, flashed on the screen, Mark emerged from the kitchen holding a paper bag. He didn't smile, didn't call out my number, just placed it on the counter and stared at me. I stepped forward. Me. Thanks, man. He didn't blink, didn't move, just kept staring. Weird, but I wasn't in the mood to care. I grabbed the bag, turned toward the exit. Halfway there, I realized my receipt had fallen. I crouched to pick it up, and when I stood back up, Mark was there, right in front of me, too close. Mark, you didn't say thank you. His voice was low, controlled, but there was something wrong in the tone, like he wasn't just annoyed, like he was testing me. Me. I did. Pretty sure I did, but, thanks again. His expression didn't change. His eyes, pale gray, almost washed out, just stayed locked on mine. Mark, too late. Me, sorry. Mark, you didn't mean it. People like you never mean it. I blinked, thrown off. People like me? He tilted his head slightly. You come in here. You take what you want. You think saying thanks makes you decent. But you don't mean it. Me. Okay, look, I'm not trying to argue. It's been a long day, man. Then, without warning, he snatched the bag from my hand, walked over to the trash can near the drink machine, and dropped it in. Just like that. The thud it made when it hit the bottom was louder than it should have been. For a second, I just stood there, dumbstruck. Me. What the hell, man? I paid for that. Mark. Then maybe next time you'll show some respect. He turned his back, started walking toward the kitchen again. I felt the eyes of everyone in the place on me. The mom and kid, the old man, the two teens whispering. I exhaled hard, forced myself to stay calm, and walked up to the counter again. Tina looked nervous before I even opened my mouth. Me. Your coworker just threw away my food because he thinks I didn't say thank you. Her expression said everything. She knew exactly what I was talking about. Tina. Was it Mark? Me. Yeah. She winced. I'm really sorry. He's been... She stopped, glancing toward the kitchen. He's been off lately. I'll get your order remade. She turned to the register, fingers flying. I could hear the fryer start up again. Then came the sound of the swinging door. Mark reappeared. Mark, what are you doing? Tina, remaking his order. Mark, no, you're not. He stepped closer. I told him to leave. Me, you told me to leave? I didn't do anything, Mark. You disrespected me. Me, you're out of your mind. He took another step. Mark, get out. The way he said it wasn't just angry, it was final, like an order. Tina's voice cracked a little. Mark, stop. I backed up, palms raised. You know what? Fine, I'm gone. I turned toward the door, heart thudding. I was almost outside when I heard the crash, something metal hitting tile. I spun. Mark had thrown a tray on the floor. Mark, don't ever come back here. Everyone in the dining area froze. I stepped out into the night air, the heat wrapping around me like a suffocating blanket. I fumbled for my keys, hands slick with sweat. Then the door slammed open behind me. Mark, hey! He was coming toward me again, fast, chest heaving, eyes wild. Mark, you think you can talk to me like that? Me, I didn't do anything, man. Mark, you think I don't see it? The way people look at me, the way they pretend to say thank you just to get rid of me? His voice cracked. There was something manic in it, something unhinged. I took a step back. You need to calm down. I'm calling the cops. He stopped dead. The parking lot lights hit his face just right, and for a second I saw it. The raw, hollow look in his eyes, like there was nothing left. He pointed a shaking finger at me. Mark, you're lucky I'm still on shift. Then he turned, walked back inside, and vanished through the swinging door. I got in my car and drove off, hands gripping the wheel tight enough to hurt. My stomach churned with adrenaline and disbelief. When I got home, I sat in silence for nearly an hour before I opened my laptop and filed a complaint with Burger King's corporate website. A week later, I got a generic email thanking me for sharing my feedback and promising that the issue would be reviewed. No follow-up, no apology, nothing. A month later, I drove past that same Burger King after work. The lights were out. A closed for renovation sign hung crooked on the door. I didn't think much of it until I heard a rumor from a delivery driver who stopped by the shop a few weeks later. He said one of the night shift employees at Burger King had snapped, locked the doors, cornered a coworker in the back kitchen. No one got hurt, not badly, but they found knives on the floor and blood on one of the fry baskets. He didn't say the name. He didn't have to. Now, every time I pass a fast food joint, I catch myself glancing toward the windows, half expecting to see those pale gray eyes watching from behind the counter. Some people break quietly, others break loud, and sometimes all it takes to light the fuse is forgetting to say thank you. Story 4. I was 16 when it happened, a junior at Hawthorne Ridge High, tucked in a forgotten corner of Maple Creek, Ohio, the kind of place where everyone knew your last name, and the biggest news of the month was whether the high school's vending machine was finally restocked. Population barely 10,000. 2 diners, 1 grocery store, and a downtown so empty you could hear your footsteps echo at night. My life wasn't dramatic. I wasn't popular, but I wasn't invisible either. Just a kid trying to keep his head above water. Basketball practice after school, homework until midnight. Repeat. Basketball wasn't a dream. It was a distraction. My dad worked long shifts at a tire plant out on County Road 12, and my mom pulled doubles at the nursing home. We were 3 ships passing in the night, never home at the same time, never sitting down together. So basketball filled the silence. Because our school only had 1 gym for all teams, practice schedules rotated. On Thursdays, the JV squad, my squad, got the late slot, 7:30 to 9:30 p.m. By the time we were done, the place was deserted. The fluorescent lights buzzed, the janitor's mop squeaked, and the echo of bouncing balls faded into hollow silence. That Thursday in March of 2018 started like any other. Coach had us running suicides until our lungs burned. "You want to play varsity next year," he barked, whistle swinging from his neck. "Then stop running like you're on vacation." By the time we wrapped up, sweat had glued my shirt to my back. My knees wobbled. When Coach finally called it, the clock read 9:10 p.m. I checked my phone. Battery, 8%. Signal, none. Great. My mom usually picked me up at 9:40, right after her shift ended. I figured I'd text her to come early, but my data had died 2 days ago after streaming too many highlight reels. The school Wi-Fi changed again. I stood outside the gym doors, breathing in the sharp March air that bit through my hoodie. Streetlights hummed faintly. The parking lot was empty except for the janitor's old Buick. I thought about waiting inside, but the lights had already gone out in the main hall. That's when I remembered the Burger King on Maple Avenue, across from the town library. 10-minute walk, warmth, Wi-Fi, maybe even a $1 cheeseburger. I slung my backpack over my shoulder and started walking. The streets of Maple Creek were dead at night. No traffic, no chatter, just the distant hum of the highway and the rhythmic crunch of my sneakers on salt-stained pavement. I cut behind the baseball field, hopped a short fence, and followed the faint glow of the gas station next to the Burger King. The sign buzzed and flickered. BURERKNG. The missing letters looked like broken teeth. Inside, the place was nearly empty. The smell of fryer oil hung heavy in the air, clinging to everything. The soda fountain hissed. A country song mumbled faintly from an overhead speaker. The cashier, a woman in her late 30s, hair pulled into a loose bun, looked up from her phone and smiled automatically. "Hey there, hun. What can I get ya?" Just a cheeseburger and a small Sprite." "Coming right up." She tapped the register, then disappeared into the kitchen. I turned toward the dining area and froze. There was a man sitting in the far corner booth, hoodie pulled up, head bowed slightly. I couldn't see his face. He sat perfectly still, elbows on the table, fingers interlocked beneath his chin. At first, I thought he might be homeless. Maple Creek didn't have many drifters, but once in a while someone would wander through, hitching rides toward the city. Still, something about him felt off, too rigid, too quiet. I took the booth near the window, close enough to the exit, far enough from him to not seem obvious. When my food came, I thanked the cashier and pulled out my phone. The Wi-Fi connected easily. I texted my mom. "Practice ended early. I'm at Burger King. Can you come now?" Her reply came almost instantly. "On my way, 10 to 15 minutes." I exhaled, relief loosening the knot in my chest. I unwrapped my burger, scrolling through Instagram, trying to ignore the flickering lights and the faint hum of the soda machine. For a few minutes, everything felt normal. Then came the sound, a chair scraping against tile. I looked up. The man from the corner was standing now, tall, lanky, his hoodie hanging loose over sharp shoulders. His jeans were dirty at the knees, and he was wearing sunglasses, indoors, at night. He didn't move right away, just stood there, head tilted slightly toward me. My heart started pounding. Maybe he was headed to the bathroom. Maybe he was leaving. But no. He turned, deliberate and slow, and walked straight toward my booth. I forced a smile. "Hey, man. You good?" No answer. He slid into the seat across from me. Up close, he looked worse. His lips were dry, cracked. His skin had that pale, waxy look, like someone who hadn't slept in days. He kept his hands flat on the table, fingers twitching slightly. I think that side's taken," I said, trying to sound casual. "My mom's on her way." Still nothing. The air between us felt heavy. The overhead light buzzed louder. I tried glancing at the counter. The cashier was gone, maybe in the back room. He leaned forward slightly. I could see my own reflection in his sunglasses, tiny, trembling. Then, finally, he spoke. His voice was low, raspy, almost like it scraped against his throat. "You go to Hawthorne Ridge." It wasn't a question. "Yeah," I said carefully. "Do I know you?" He didn't respond, just kept staring. I swallowed. "Look, man, I don't want any trouble. I'm just—" He lifted one finger, pressing it to where his lips would be. "Shh." My blood ran cold. I stood up so fast my chair squealed against the floor. "Okay. You take the booth, man. I'm, just heading out." He didn't move. I backed away slowly, my hand clutching my phone. The second I reached the door, I pushed it open and stepped into the night air. The bell gave a weak ding. For a few moments, I didn't turn around. I just walked, fast. My heart thudded in my chest, every shadow stretching too long under the street lights. Halfway down the block, I risked a glance over my shoulder. He was standing in the Burger King doorway, still, watching. I picked up the pace, my sneakers slapping the pavement. I crossed the street, heading toward the school, hoping maybe Coach had forgotten something and come back. The building loomed dark and silent. Every door locked, every window black. I tried calling my mom, but the call dropped. Weak signal. That's when I heard it. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, behind me. I spun around. He was halfway across the street now, walking with that same calm, unhurried pace. The sunglasses caught the light, reflecting twin pinpoints of white. "Leave me alone," I shouted, voice cracking. He didn't stop. I ran. Around the school, through the parking lot, past the empty bleachers. My breath came in short gasps, my backpack bouncing with every step. I didn't look back until I reached the far side of the field. He was gone, or so I thought. A car horn blared, headlights swept over me. "Ethan!" My mom's voice. I ran to the car, yanked the door open, and dove inside. "Go! Just go!" She didn't ask. She just slammed her foot on the gas. As we pulled out of the lot, I looked back. He was there again, standing on the edge of the field, half lit by the distant Burger King sign, still, watching. He didn't chase, didn't move, just stood there until he disappeared behind the trees. I never told anyone what happened that night, not my parents, not my coach. What could I say? That some man in sunglasses sat across from me and followed me into the dark without saying a word. Weeks later, the Burger King shut down for renovations. It never reopened. Sometimes, when I drive past Maple Avenue at night, I still see the faint outline of that flickering sign through the trees. And I swear, if you look just long enough, you can see a figure in the corner booth, waiting. Story 5. I never planned on coming back to Fairview. The name itself still leaves a bad taste, like rainwater gone stale. It's a small town tucked into the southern edge of Arkansas, about an hour north of Texarkana. One of those places where gas stations double as diners, and everyone still waves at passing trucks because there's nothing else to do. The last time I'd been here, I was 18, running from everything that felt too small for me. The same gas stations, the same faces, the same damn fried food smell that clung to your clothes, no matter where you worked. That was 6 years ago. Back then, I told my mom I'd never look back. I got in my rusted Civic and drove until the Fairview city limit sign disappeared in the rearview mirror. But dreams don't pay rent, and when life starts to rot around the edges, even the places you swore you'd escape have a way of calling you back. Now I'm 24. My mom's gone. Cancer took her last winter, and after her funeral I realized I had no one and nowhere else. I'd burned through my savings during the pandemic, lost my job at the tire plant, and the girl I was seeing in Dallas stopped answering my texts the week after. So when I saw the "Help Wanted" night shift sign taped to the window of a Burger King off Route 17, I didn't even think. I just walked in. The guy who hired me was Ron Lacey, mid-40s, bald, round in the middle, and always chewing on a toothpick like it was keeping him alive. "You ever work fast food before?" he asked, eyes flicking over the application I'd filled out in smudged pen. "Did a year at a Sonic," I said, "back when I was in high school." "That'll do," he grunted. "Night shift ain't bad. Quiet most nights. You keep the floor clean, refill the fry bins, restock the condiments, lock the doors at 3. I pay cash every Friday if you want. Just don't fall asleep on me. Cash is fine." He gave a short nod, then looked up from the paper. "You local?" "Used to be." "That right?" He grinned, toothpick rolling across his lips. "Then you already know what the nights are like out here." "Dead?" "Sometimes too dead," he said, almost like a joke, but his eyes didn't match the smile. My first shift started that Friday, 6 p.m. to 3 a.m. The restaurant sat on a lonely stretch of highway where trucks thundered by and bugs pinged against the lights like hail. No drive-thru, just a tired red and white sign that still said, "Have it your way," even though the paint had peeled off the letters. The parking lot was cracked and sun-baked, weeds pushing through the asphalt like stubborn memories. Inside, the air smelled like grease and old ketchup. A broken fan rattled behind the counter. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, flickering sometimes like they were sighing. It was depressing, but it was work. I met my coworker, Maria, a single mom who handled the closing shift with me 3 nights a week. She was small, sharp-eyed, maybe 30, and didn't talk much unless it was necessary. "Ron says you're new," she said, flipping a basket of fries into oil. "Yeah, trying to get back on my feet. Good luck with that." She glanced toward the empty booths. "This town eats people alive." We didn't speak much after that. The first week went fine. Boring, even. Most nights we'd get a few truckers coming through, a couple of teenagers high off cheap weed, maybe a lonely old guy nursing a coffee at the corner table. By midnight, it was usually just me, Maria, and the sound of the fryers. One night, while cleaning the soda machine, I asked, "What did Ron mean by 2 dead?" Maria didn't look up from her mop. "Forget it." "No, really." He said it like there was a story. She sighed, leaning the mop against the wall. "You ever hear about the guy they called the King?" I frowned. "Can't say I have." She lowered her voice. "It was before your time. Back when this place first opened, like 15 years ago, some drifter showed up dressed in one of those Burger King mascot outfits. Crown, robe, rubber mask, the whole deal. Used to stand by the road waving at cars, pretending to be part of the grand opening. People thought it was a marketing thing. Until one night, a delivery driver found the manager dead in the freezer. Throat cut. Cops never caught who did it. Just found the crown in the parking lot, covered in blood. That's urban legend stuff." "Maybe," she said, "but Ron was here that year." "He never talks about it." I laughed it off, but something about the way she said it, flat, certain, stuck with me. A week later, Maria quit. No warning. Ron told me she had family issues and that I'd be covering solo until he hired someone new. I didn't push. That Friday night, the rain started around 10. Big, heavy drops that hammered the roof and turned the parking lot into a mirror. I was alone, cleaning the shake machine when the lights flickered. The hum of the refrigerator cut out. Then, silence. "Great," I muttered. "Perfect night for a blackout." The emergency lights kicked in, dull red bulbs that made everything look like a murder scene. I grabbed my phone, its flashlight barely cutting through the gloom, and walked toward the breaker room. That's when I heard it. Thump. A single heavy sound from the back door, like someone knocking, slow and deliberate. I froze. Another thump. Then a voice, low, muffled by the rain. "Hey, you open." My heart kicked hard against my ribs. I wasn't supposed to open the door after closing hours, but technically it wasn't closing yet. I swallowed, stepped closer. "Who's there?" I called. "Hungry," the voice said. "Real hungry." Lightning flashed outside the narrow window on the door, and for a split second I saw a silhouette. Tall, broad shoulders, wearing something shiny. Then it was gone. When I flipped the deadbolt and cracked the door, rain blew in sideways. A man stood there, maybe 6'2", drenched head to toe. He wore a gold-trimmed robe that clung to him, and on his head, I swear to God, was a plastic crown, the kind they give to kids in Happy Meals. "Sorry, man," I said, instinctively stepping back. "We're—" He interrupted with a grin, water dripping down his chin. "Still open, right?" I hesitated. "For a few more hours." "Then I'll have the royal combo," he said, voice deep and smooth, like he was used to being listened to. "Double Whopper, large fries, Coke. Yeah, sure. Come on in." He entered slow, heavy boots, squeaking on the tile. The robe brushed the floor, leaving wet streaks behind. I forced a smile and went behind the counter to take his order. He stood perfectly still while I cooked. Didn't check his phone, didn't look around. Just stared, straight at me. Every time I glanced up, his eyes were there, unblinking. When I handed him the tray, he didn't sit. Instead, he reached into his robe and pulled out a small, folded napkin. "You ever think about how a man can own a place like this?" he asked, voice low. "Wear the crown. Be king of something nobody cares about." I tried to laugh it off. Guess that's the American dream. He smiled wider. You don't believe in dreams anymore? Something cold slid down my spine. What makes you say that? Because you came back here, he said softly. People like you don't come back unless they're empty. Before I could answer, thunder cracked outside. The lights flickered again. When they came back, he was gone. I looked everywhere. Bathroom, lobby, back exit. Nothing. His food sat untouched on the table, steam still curling off the fries. The crown he'd been wearing now rested on the seat across from it. I told myself he'd just walked out during the blackout, that maybe I hadn't seen him leave. But when I checked the cameras later, my blood turned to ice. He was there one frame, then static, then gone. The next morning, I told Ron everything. He just stared at me for a long moment, jaw working his toothpick. Wasn't real, he finally said. Probably some tweaker screwing with you. I've seen tweakers. This guy wasn't that, Ron sighed, rubbing his eyes. You want the job or not? I didn't answer. He didn't need me to. For 3 nights, nothing happened, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching. Every creak of the fryer, every hiss of the soda line made me jump. I kept the crown locked in the back office, just in case Ron decided I was losing it. On the 4th night, a trucker came in around 12:30. He looked shaken, pale under the fluorescent lights. You all right? I asked. He nodded, trembling hands gripping his coffee. Yeah, just saw something on the road. Looked like a guy, wearing a damn cape or something, standing right in the middle of Route 17. My stomach dropped. Where? Half-mile east, near that old gas station he left 10 minutes later, still shaking. I told myself it was coincidence. Then the power died again. This time I didn't go to the breaker. I stayed put, heart hammering, eyes on the glass doors. A shape moved outside, faint, gliding between the yellow beams of the parking lot light. Then slowly he stepped into view. The robe, the crown, the mask, the king. He stood just beyond the light, rain dripping off him, one hand raised like he was blessing me through the glass. Then he moved closer, and with a long, deliberate motion, he dragged something across the ground. It made a wet, scraping sound. When lightning flashed, I saw it. An arm. Human. Pale. Torn. I stumbled back, knocking over the mop bucket. The smell hit me a second later. Copper, rot, and something sweet underneath. He lifted the arm, turned it in his grip, and waved with the limp hand. Open up, he said through the glass. I'm starving. I bolted into the back office, slammed the door, and called 911. The dispatcher's voice crackled through, calm and slow, like I was describing a raccoon in a dumpster. Sir, stay where you are. Units are en route. He's outside right now. Sir, please remain calm. What's your name? Before I could answer, the back door rattled. Then again, something slammed into it. Once, twice, hard enough to make the frame shudder. Open up, peasant, the voice hissed. Your king commands it. The door hinges groaned. I shoved a metal chair under the handle, backing up until my spine hit the filing cabinet. Then silence. When the cops arrived 15 minutes later, there was no one. No footprints, no arm, no robe. Just the empty parking lot and the crown sitting right at the door, dripping rainwater onto the tile. They didn't believe me, of course. Wrote it up as a false report and told Ron to check his cameras again. But the footage that night was nothing but static from 11:57 to 12:23. The exact window I'd seen him. Ron looked pale when he reviewed it. You saw him, didn't you? I asked. He didn't answer, just shut off the monitor and walked out without another word. I quit 2 days later. Packed up my stuff, told myself I'd leave Fairview for good this time. But on my last night, curiosity got the better of me. I stopped by the restaurant around midnight just to see it one last time. The parking lot was empty. The neon sign buzzed weakly in the dark. I stood by my car, watching the windows, half expecting him to appear. Then I noticed it. Movement behind the counter, a shape leaning over the register, and a faint glow like the light of a phone. I crept closer until I could see through the glass. Ron was there, alone, wearing the crown. He looked up, eyes hollow, face pale, and then he smiled. Too wide, too slow. When I blinked, the face staring back at me wasn't Ron's anymore. It was the mask, the frozen grin. The lights flickered once. Then the sign went dark. I left Fairview that night. Drove until the sun came up, until the smell of fryer grease faded from my clothes. But sometimes, when the highway is empty and the radio cuts to static, I swear I hear it, that same slow voice behind me. Your king commands it, and I know wherever that crown is, someone's still wearing it, still hungry.